Okay, we are moving on to a new lesson. Lesson 3, linear relationships in context. Context, as you know from English, just means the situation that's going on around you. So we're going to look at linear relationships and see those in real life situations is what that means. So if you will remember, we have talked a little bit about independent variables and dependent variables. So we're going to get more into those in this lesson. So if you don't understand what they are, hopefully after we talk about them during this lesson, it will become more clear to you. Okay, we're going to identify the dependent and independent variables of the situation. Trung is purchasing canned vegetables at his local grocery store to donate to the local food pantry. Each can costs 59 cents. So remember, you want to ask yourself, what depends on something else? Or what thing in the scenario depends on something else? So if each can costs 59 cents, the price of the can, 59 cents. That's just going to be what it is. But if we were going to graph it, we would put total cost over here and the number of cans we buy right there. So the independent variable is always on the x-axis. So that's going to be the number of cans that he purchases. The dependent variable, what depends on something else? The total cost depends on how many cans you purchase. Okay, so that's the independent and dependent for that scenario. Oops, let's look at the next one. Sorry, I went forward a lot. The amount of electricity used by a light changes as the knob on the dimmer switch is turned. So if we had a graph, we're going to have X and Y. What depends on something else in this situation? I want you to think about it for a second. So what depends on something else? The amount of electricity used. How do we know the amount of electricity used? How many turns we do on the dimmer switch? So that would be our independent variable. Okay, all right, next scenario. Paula is selling cookies to raise money for her local troop. For each box of cookies she sells, the troop receives $2. So independent. Dependent. What depends on something else? Think about it. The amount the troop receives depends on how many boxes of cookies she sells. How would each problem situation change if you switched the independent and dependent quantities? Would each problem still make sense? Think about that. In number 1, we could switch the quantities because we could say we're spending $1, $5, $10, $15, and we're buying the cans. And so we could say, how many cans do we get for $10? We could switch those because in real life, that would work. But in a real life situation, could we switch the amount of electricity used by a light as the knob on the switch is turned? No. So for number 1, it's possible to switch the variables. Number 2 and number 3, she has to sell cookies in order to make money. She can't make money and not sell any cookies. So number 2 and number 3 do not make sense to switch the variables. Okay, let's move on to this first activity of this lesson.